There are some actors out there who are so beloved, it seems like they have always been the best. But in reality, even these Hollywood giants have totally stunk up the screen. That's right, from the biggest blockbuster draws to Oscar-winning icons, no actor is safe from giving a mediocre or downright awful performance in their lifetime. It happens to the best of us. Whether the role just wasn't right, the director didn't come through, or they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, here are some roles that we bet these superstars wish we would forget. Ryan Reynolds is one of those guys who is so funny and so charming that he makes even the worst movies watchable. It also means that he can get away with showing up to work and doing little more than saying his lines and raising an eyebrow in a rakish kind of way and get away with it. At least that's what he seemed to be doing in Green Lantern, a notorious flop. This is one superhero movie that never made it off the ground, and a performance that has haunted Reynolds so much that he even assassinated himself for considering it at the end of Deadpool 2. Thankfully, he found the perfect role in Deadpool years later, and Green Lantern can continue to fade into obscurity. 2008 was a huge year for Dev Patel, who exploded onto the screen with his unbelievable performance in that year's Best Picture winner, Slumdog Millionaire. Ever since, he's become an awesome on-screen presence, even nabbing an Oscar nom for himself in 2017 for Lion. But that doesn't mean that he has not had a couple of slip-ups along the way, the most notable of which has gotta be his villainous turn in M. Night Shyamalan's adaptation of The Last Airbender. While the entire movie's a bit of a train wreck, it becomes clear as it goes that maybe Dev just wasn't quite ready to take on that role. Either that or he didn't get enough direction, which, for a young actor, is game-changing. Natalie Portman is a great actress, a fact that she's proven ever since she was a child. But not even the talented Ms. Portman could save the Star Wars prequels, nor could she really figure out just what she was doing there. Stuck in some truly giant costumes and working opposite Hayden Christensen doing the absolute most, Portman's work in these movies feels out of place, and definitely from a galaxy far, far away. Tommy Lee Jones has been a mainstay in Hollywood for decades now, and he's maintained his illustrious career by playing the types of roles he is perfect for: straight-faced, no-nonsense, not to be reckoned with types of men, but that doesn't mean he lacks range either. And yet, there was one movie where he just couldn't seem to find his footing, and that was Batman Forever. Jones is a notoriously no-nonsense guy, and apparently started the whole movie off by telling Jim Carrey that he would not sanction his buffoonery, but instead of allowing his Two-Face to contrast Carrey's cartoonish Riddler, he tries instead to compete with him. While he's never bad, it just doesn't quite work out. Sometimes a performance is so confusing, so out of character, and so downright not great that it lives on in infamy long after audiences have forgotten the movie it was even a part of. This is definitely the case for Kevin Costner's turn as the iconic Robin of Locksley in the not-so-iconic movie Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. While most of us probably don't remember much about the movie itself, we will never be able to forget Costner's, we wanna say, British accent? It is an accent, and we're using air quotes here, that is so famously strange and barely there that it's actually been referenced in another Robin Hood movie.
I can speak with an English accent.
It just goes to show that, while it might seem nice to be a huge movie star that no one ever disagrees with, sometimes it's better to have someone in your circle who can tell you when you're making a big mistake. Julia Roberts is an actress with many talents, and there is definitely a reason that she was the romantic comedy queen of the 1990s. But while some can slip into a villainous role with ease, in the movie Mirror Mirror, Roberts faulted at doing just that. Maybe she's too lovable and earnest, but watching her try and play the evil queen just fell a little bit flat. When we hear the name Al Pacino, most of us jump to proclaim him one of the finest actors of his generation, and that is undeniably true. He definitely is, but even that doesn't exempt him from turning in a less than perfect performance every now and then. It might be controversial to say, but for us, that performance is in the movie that won him his first Academy Award, Scent of a Woman. Now, hear us out. The thing about this movie is that he isn't bad in it, but ever since it and his Oscar win, all of his other performances can't seem to escape the hoo-aah bravado that made him famous in Scent of a Woman. We think he should have won for The Godfather, or The Godfather Part 2, or really any other movie that he lends his genius to, just not this one. Russell Crowe is a formidable on-screen presence, which is why the world was surprised to find out that he can also sing. So well, in fact, that he was going to play the iconic role of Javert in the ambitious big screen adaptation of Les Miserables. But then, when the film came out, audiences everywhere realized that while Crowe has many talents, maybe musical theater just wasn't one of them. It was an odd performance, probably made worse by the fact that he shares the screen with a handful of bona fide Broadway stars and actors who can, sing. While he did bring a certain seriousness that makes sense for Javert, his casting really did stand out among the rest, and not in the way you want it to. Keanu Reeves was a huge star in the 90s and early 2000s, and we almost completely forgot about his role in the 1992 adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, directed by the great Francis Ford Coppola. Sadly, Keanu's performance in the film was the only part of it that actually garnered any criticism, mostly due to his very American-sounding British accent. Reeves seems out of place in the lavish Gothic period piece, but luckily for him, he was surrounded by so much talent that the movie still holds up. Robert DeNiro can do many things, but when it came time for him to play the villain in Rocky and Bullwinkle, he may have stumbled upon something that doesn't come quite as naturally. It's not that he isn't funny, he's proven that in movies like Meet the Parents. It's just that maybe his comedy lies more in the deadpan and less in the cartoonish. Hey, it's okay, we all have to be bad at something. Ah yes, Scarlett Johansson in Ghost in the Shell, the Hollywood whitewashing scandal heard round the globe. We are actually fans of Scarlett, and her work in Under the Skin and Lost in Translation is some of the best out there, but all of this was just wrong. While we were super excited to see her slay in Black Widow, this is one performance of hers that is better left forgotten. Leonardo DiCaprio is a national treasure, there's no getting around it. The man has given us incredible performances in almost every movie in which he's appeared in since 1993. But even this golden boy turned golden statue having man has made a stinker in his time, and the one that comes to mind for most of us has gotta be The Beach. One of the first movies he made after skyrocketing to international superstardom in Titanic, all eyes were on him. And since Leo has never been one to stick to the safe and predictable, he really did swing for the fences in this movie. Unfortunately, it didn't work out as he had hoped. Luckily, the movie has never really haunted him, and his career just keeps getting more and more exciting. Ah, Geely. You know what? If we were the it Hollywood couple of the moment, we would probably try and make a movie with our better half as well, which is exactly what Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck did when they signed on to play opposite one another in Geely. The movie centers around Affleck's Larry Geely, a man assigned to kidnap the son of a brother of a district attorney, and Jennifer Lopez plays Ricky, a woman assigned to make sure Larry doesn't mess up. If you think that these two opposites are not going to ultimately attract despite their insistence that they aren't interested in one another, well then, you've got another thing coming. You didn't think we'd play favorites, did ya? Sorry, Mr. Affleck, we're not letting J-Lo take the fall for this one on her own. While both Lopez and Affleck have proven themselves to be talented actors over the years, in Geely, literally none of that comes through. They're not terrible, they're just obvious. For the will they, won't they thing to actually work out, there really has to be some doubt in the beginning about whether or not they will, but from the get-go, we know exactly how the movie is going to play out, and the next hour and 29 minutes are just spent waiting for the inevitable. Plus, Affleck is doing the most as a tracksuit-wearing, Tony Soprano idolizing, gabagool-loving caricature of an Italian-American that it's really hard to see anything else. While John Travolta might have gone off the deep end in recent years, there's no denying that he was once one of the most coveted leading men in Hollywood, after dancing into our hearts in Saturday Night Fever and Grease, and then proving that he had tons of star power in films like Pulp Fiction. At some point, Travolta got a little otherworldly, and then in 2000, he made a movie called Battlefield Earth, based on the science fiction novel written by none other than L. Ron Hubbard. Hubbard, if you are not familiar, is also the creator of Scientology, an organization which Travolta is a proud member of. And while he's definitely giving it all he's got in a giant wig of dreadlocks and a face full of prosthetics, Battlefield Earth is downright bizarre. Jared Leto has made a name for himself as an actor who will do just about anything to get into character, whether or not it makes a lot of sense to anyone around him. Stories of his antics surrounding his Joker performance are perhaps even more infamous than the movie itself. But when the movie that all of that transformation was for is either poorly received or goes completely unnoticed, we have to wonder if it was all worth it. Take a movie called Chapter 27, for instance. In order to play the man who assassinated John Lennon, Leto gained over 60 pounds. And if you haven't heard of Chapter 27, you're not alone. Most of us haven't, even though Leto did some serious damage to his body for it. Jodie Foster has made some incredible movies in her time, from Silence of the Lambs to Contact and everything in between. She's never been an actor who is afraid to make bold choices, and for that, we love her. And yet, those choices are risky. In the case of Elysium, they didn't quite pay off. Foster tries her hand at the antagonist role, playing the villainous Delacour opposite Matt Damon. While it's not a bad performance per se, Foster made the decision to give her character an accent of some kind. It's at times Southern, and others almost German, and always a little bit confusing. Will Smith has had a remarkable career trajectory as a musician turned sitcom star to a musician again who then became a bona fide and Oscar-nominated movie star who once again transformed into a producer and now YouTuber? And he's pretty much excelled at every single thing he's tried over the years. Even his movie track record is glowing, aside from one or two misses here and there. One that did not quite work out is definitely After Earth, the ambitious but grim sci-fi epic that Smith produced and starred in alongside his son Jaden. It's hard to get behind his very straight, emotionless performance, especially when he spends a lot of the movie chastising his son for being curious and different from his father. Cuba Gooding Jr. has had a bit of a rocky career in Hollywood. He is clearly a talented actor and has played some amazing roles over the years, but he's also made some strange choices that actually wound up hurting what would have been an all-star career trajectory. One of those choices has gotta be Boat Trip. Gooding Jr. stars as a man who accidentally winds up on a gay cruise and proceeds to pretend to be gay in order to get close to one of the female crew members. No one out there hates Batman and Robin more than the caped crusader himself, George Clooney. While at the time the casting seemed actually pretty perfect, the movie turned out to be such a cartoony catastrophe that not even the suavest man in the world could save it. He's not exactly a bad Bruce Wayne, and in a better movie, he might have actually been great. But at this point, the anatomically correct batsuit is too burned into all of our brains that we can never unsee it or see what might have been. Eddie Murphy has long been one of the most incredible comedians around, and not only that, he's also proved himself an impressive dramatic actor. From his roles in Dreamgirls to Dolomite Is My Name, Murphy has earned tons and tons of praise for being the skilled performer that he is. But then of course, there was Norbit. After The Nutty Professor, Murphy became a box office surefire playing multiple characters in slapstick comedies, and it went pretty well until Norbit, a movie so universally disliked that some think it actually cost him the Oscar for his Dreamgirls performance. Norbit just couldn't top what Murphy had done in The Nutty Professor, a movie that still has us repeating one phrase to ourselves over and over again after all these years. Hercules, Hercules, Hercules! In the early 2000s, Hollywood seemed obsessed with putting its biggest and hottest stars into Greco-Roman period pieces. We blame Gladiator for that, and probably so does Colin Farrell for his appearance as the ancient Macedonian king Alexander the Great. It's not that Farrell can't pull off playing a king, it's just so very odd to see him in the role. The Irish actor has a lot going for him, but this movie is not it. Dwayne Johnson is such a good-hearted, kind, and wonderful person that he just can't help endowing every character he plays with the same qualities, with one huge exception. We're talking about the Tooth Fairy. While an older Johnson might have been able to make us fall in love with the reluctant Tooth Fairy inductee, earlier on in his career there was just nothing he could do to make us like this guy. It was an oddly rage-fueled performance for a children's movie, even if it does have its funny moments. Even though we would follow Sandra Bullock blindfolded down a river, that does not mean that we cannot recognize when she is not being her best self, and she was most definitely not her best self in a little movie called All About Steve. There's not a whole lot to remember about this movie, other than the fact that it was one of the most cringeworthy and uncomfortable performances she has ever given. So much so that she won the Razzie Award for Best Actress. It didn't do too much damage to her career, however. Literally, the day after she hilariously accepted her Razzie, she won Best Actress at the Academy Awards. And that is why we're always on Team Sandra. A lot of people like to talk about Nicolas Cage as though he is a bad actor just because he makes absolutely bonkers choices that most rational human beings would never consider in this or any other lifetime. But we're here to say that Cage is actually a great actor. And even though he doesn't know where it is,
where did Danielle put it? She's my personal man. I think she put it.
He deserved both his Oscar and his Oscar nomination. Just like so many other actors on this list, if you make nothing but the boldest of choices, sometimes they are going to be a little too bold, or in Cage's case, completely unhinged, as is the case for The Wicker Man. Trying to reboot a classic is always risky. Throw in Nick Cage and let him go totally off the rails and you get either the best or the worst Nicolas Cage performance of all time. We will let you decide.
Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast!
Isn't it a little comforting to know that even the best fall down sometimes? And in the case of a super famous Hollywood star, they fall really, really hard, but what matters is they get back up. Which of these performances do you think really missed the mark? Did we leave out an awesome misfire that we just need to know about? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe to keep up to date with the latest videos from Screen Rant. See ya!